No boundaries, no obstacles have the power they once had. As a chosen one, in this new period of your life, the chains that have been holding you back are unraveling, and one by one the obstacles are asking for your permission. The break you have been waiting for so long has come. Neither the burden of the past nor the rules set by others can stop you now. Now you speak, you decide. Write 777 in the comments. Now don't just be a spectator, be a part of the story. With your support, we will become a giant family of 5,000 people. Subscribe now, turn on notifications and join us. Because even for the chosen ones, boundaries have to stop and ask permission. It's time to reshape your life freely, to open new doors at every step. Remember, after today, even the impossible cannot pass without consulting you. Imagine a garden after the storm, every droplet on the leaf trembling in the new sunlight. That's what it feels like when destiny finally calls your name. There's a glistening expectation in the air, a knowing deep in your bones that it's time to rise and shine for more than just yourself. Beloved, you're not just pacing at the edge of your calling, you are the garden the rain was meant to water, the soil the sun was meant to warm. That pressure in your chest? It's not anxiety, it's the heartbeat of divine purpose pulsing louder and louder until the old doubts can't drown it out anymore. For years, you tiptoed through life, careful not to disturb the dust or raise your voice, always thinking someone else was better suited to take center stage. You turned away from open doors, let others step ahead, telling yourself you needed just a little more time or another sign from heaven. Every "not yet" and every "maybe later" was really the universe testing the roots of your patience, testing if you could trust the seed of greatness God tucked into your soul long before you had words for it. Now, like a gate swinging wide at sunrise, opportunity is calling your true name. You're no longer called to dim your light just to fit in cramped spaces or shrink to accommodate small expectations. You're the lamp on the hill, the beacon that guides the weary back home. People around you sense it, even those who once tried to box you in are feeling the shift. The same ones who questioned your worth will watch as the very gifts you once hid become the miracles this world desperately needs. There is a reason your story didn't fit the mold. It's because you're the vessel God chose for a new outpouring. The delays, the detours, all of it was fertilizer for your future. When you look in the mirror now, see the warrior behind the gentleness, the architect in the heartache, the conqueror in the quiet prayers whispered in the dark. This new season is not just about you coming out of hiding. It's about the kingdom of heaven advancing because you finally said yes. Picture this. A lion who spent years walking in circles behind the trees now steps into the open plain, mane lit by the dawn. That's your spirit, majestic, uncontainable, finally claiming the territory heaven reserved for you. The world needs the full measure of your gift, not the watered-down version. The hesitation and second-guessing are relics of a chapter that's already closed. You may have feared stepping out would cost you friends or approval, but what you're gaining is far greater. The freedom to bless, the courage to lead, the authority to speak life into places that have been barren too long. Every dream, every hope you shelved in caution is now being dusted off by the breath of God Himself. People will come to you, drawn by the peace in your presence, the clarity in your words, and the evidence of a life refined, not broken, by the fire. This is the season to speak boldly, to move as one who knows the ground is wholly beneath their feet. You won't have to prove your worth. Your very existence is the proof, your journey the sermon, your survival the testimony. Let the fullness of your heart flow out. Sing if you want, build if you must, love as if it's your last day, because heaven is spotlighting you now. There's no need to apologize for the space you take up or the dreams you dare to hold. Like that garden after rain, your growth is not just allowed, it's necessary for others to find hope. The time for hiding is over. Your yes is the key that unlocks doors for generations after you. Step out. The world has been waiting for your light, and heaven itself is standing in ovation. So, walk forward with confidence, chosen one. Every tremor of anticipation in your chest is heaven cheering you on. Let them see the strength that's been growing in secret. Let them hear the wisdom ripened by waiting. Let them witness the love that could only come from one who has been kept, prepared, and called for such a time as this. Looking for inspiration and intrigue? Subscribe and start your quest. Like a seed that refuses to be pressed down by concrete, your destiny has been quietly pushing upward, waiting for its appointed hour. There are moments in life when the world wants you to play small, to tuck your gifts out of sight, to settle for less so others can rest easy in their familiar comfort zones. But beloved, heaven has already stamped, approved, beside your name before any earthly council had a chance to vote. The moment your light started breaking through, some folks who once felt bigger beside you began to feel the tremors. They preferred the you that needed their advice, the you that stayed quiet in the back row, the version of you that didn't threaten their illusions of control or make waves in the calm waters of status quo. But the soil of the old season can't restrain what God planted inside you. You've been called to rise, even if your sprouting upsets someone else's shade. The minute you embrace your purpose, those tied to your old stories start circling back. Not to celebrate, but to calculate. A friend who faded out may suddenly show up, curious about your new strength. A sibling or coworker might urge you to stay humble, but you'll hear the fear behind their words as your newfound confidence exposes the cracks in their certainty. Even voices in your own home may try to water down your ambition, nudging you to slow down just as your soul is stretching for the sky. See, when you break through, you don't just shatter ceilings for yourself, you lift the roof for everyone watching. Your transformation becomes a signpost for others stuck in delay, proof that divine appointments don't require human permission. Those who once wrote you off are about to see your life as a living letter, and some will be drawn, some will be rattled, and a few may resent the new ground you're claiming. Yet you can't shrink to fit what God is stretching. The light that's coming from within you is heaven sent, and it's about to overflow into every relationship, every environment, and every challenge you face. Unlock the doors of ancient faith. Subscribe for new episodes every week. You'll notice that the ones most unsettled by your progress are often the ones who secretly hoped you'd never discover what you carried. But God's timing is perfect. The very moment a door swings open, watch how advisors and helpers gather, not always to support, but sometimes to regain the sense of importance they lost as you outgrew their boundaries. You're not here to make people comfortable with mediocrity. You're here to awaken those who are ready and to show, simply by living authentically, that it's possible to move from overlook to overflow. So when someone tries to pull you back or disguise their envy as wisdom, remember, a mighty oak doesn't apologize for growing tall among shrubs. You're not here to bend to the expectations of those who fear change. You're here to answer a higher call, and as you keep walking in that call, you'll find that every attempt to limit you only fertilizes the ground for greater blessing. What used to intimidate you will look small in the rearview mirror. And those familiar voices? They might try to hold on, but your spirit will be too busy reaching for new heights, carrying the fragrance of courage wherever you go. Step into this new season with a boldness rooted in knowing you've already been chosen, long before you were ever recognized. The shift in you will reveal what's true in others, but don't be surprised by the resistance. That's just a sign you're right on schedule, breaking ground that hasn't been touched before, lighting the way for others still struggling to believe they can rise too. Imagine a garden at dawn, where a single night-blooming flower keeps its petals clenched tight, refusing to greet the sun for fear that its beauty will be overshadowed. That's how it feels around people who chase perfection for the applause, not for purpose. You sense it, the tension in the air, the way laughter stalls and words catch when your joy walks into the room. There's a pressure to tuck in your spirit, to mute your natural glow just so they can keep their fragile spotlight steady. But deep inside, you know this isn't the heartbeat of real love. That's the emptiness that comes from living for compliments, not conviction. What rattles them isn't your mistakes, it's the steady glow of authenticity they can't replicate. You see, there are those who need to be the brightest bulb in the box, who worry that your light makes theirs seem smaller. Yet, God didn't design you to shrink so others could feel tall. He placed constellations in the heavens, not so one could outshine another, but so every star could contribute to the story written across the sky. You're not meant to orbit around someone else's approval. You're crafted to stand as a testimony, uniquely patterned, steadfast, and eternally shining. When your path crosses with those who measure their worth by outshining others, remember, you are not in competition with anyone's facade. You are a living mosaic, a gathering of moments and miracles, woven together by the hand of the divine. The world has seen plenty of suns that burn hot and fast, but it's the constellation that guides the wanderer home. Beloved, don't let anyone force you to trade your true self for a counterfeit piece. That's not your calling. God has set you among the stars for a reason. When you honor the light placed inside you, it doesn't take away from anyone else. It sets the whole night sky ablaze. So let them polish their surfaces. You keep cultivating substance. Let them hunger for approval. You feast on purpose. Because you were made to shine, not in isolation, but as part of the grand design, a living constellation declaring that the darkness can never comprehend the light you carry. Now step forward with your head held high. You are not just another star, you're a constellation mapped by the Creator's own hand. Let your light be a comfort to the lost, a challenge to the counterfeit, and a celebration of the truth that can't be hidden by anybody else's shadow. Keep shining, chosen one. The world needs your brilliance just as God intended, undaunted, undimmed, and undeniably your own. Think of an old oak tree standing strong at the edge of a changing field. Folks wander off, chasing new crops, believing a brighter harvest waits just beyond the fence. But seasons pass, and those distant meadows reveal nothing but thin soil and shallow roots. When the winds turn cold and the world quiets down, it's the sturdy branches of that old tree that call them home. The same tree they once left behind, steady and unchanged, still offering shelter and shade. Beloved, that's the truth about people who wandered out of your life for promises that sparkled but never satisfied. They thought they'd find deeper laughter or gentler acceptance somewhere else, only to learn that not every circle brings warmth, and not every party means belonging. Every compliment out there sounded like music until they realized it was played on empty instruments, hollow notes with no melody behind them. In the bright lights of someone else's stage, they missed the unfiltered honesty of your heart and the comfort that only comes from being truly seen. Now the applause has faded and the echoes have lost their charm. Their spirit aches for the substance they traded for show, and their memory circles back to the moments that mattered. The hard conversations that brought healing, the quiet prayers you spoke when no one was watching, the loyal presence that never needed a spotlight to prove its worth. They remember how your words cut through confusion and how your forgiveness opened doors they thought were closed forever. This is the season when the prodigals look homeward, hearts softening in the twilight, realizing that all the roads they traveled led them back to the one place their soul could rest. It's not about holding grudges or building walls. It's about recognizing that the real treasures in life aren't found in the noise or the crowd, but in the steady presence of someone who never stopped rooting for them, never stopped telling the truth, and never let disappointment steal their hope. And as God weaves all things for good, your story stands as a living testimony that what's genuine can't be replaced by what's flashy, and what's planted deep won't be uprooted by passing storms. Grace doesn't lock the door, and love doesn't keep score. It simply stands like that old oak, arms open wide, ready for the wanderer's return, stronger, wiser, and still shining with the quiet glory of a life anchored in the soil of truth. Like a tree growing on the side of a rocky mountain, still lifting its branches toward the sunlight even when roots have to split stone to find water, your spirit keeps reaching up while others beg you to shrink back. Sometimes, the most painful resistance comes not from strangers, but from familiar voices, the ones whose own dreams were crushed under the weight of past regrets. These voices will package their doubts as wisdom, telling you not to aim so high, not to expect too much, not to get your hopes up. But their words are just echoes of the bars they've never escaped, handed down out of habit and fear, not out of truth. They'll cloak their caution as concern, but really, it's the language of limitation, their own ceilings, their own failures, projected like shadows onto your sky. You can feel the subtle pressure, the nudge to clip your own wings before you've even felt the wind beneath them. That's not wisdom speaking, beloved, that's just the sound of chains rattling in someone else's soul, hoping you'll trade your calling for the comfort of their approval. But you were not designed for cages. You were not built to settle for safe nests or low branches. The very fingerprints of heaven are pressed into your destiny, calling you higher, calling you out into the open, calling you to stretch where others retreated. If God had wanted you to think small, He would have given you different dreams. But instead, He put a vision inside you that won't stop tugging at your heart, no matter how many times someone tells you to be realistic. Let every discouraging word roll off like water off a duck's back. Picture yourself as an eagle catching a thermal, rising above every valley of doubt. What was meant to pin you down only sharpens your hunger for open skies. When the old voices try to tether you to the ground, remember, you're not called to repeat their history, but to write your own chapter, full of impossible victories and holy risk. And the next time someone tries to clip your wings with well-meaning limits, bless them, smile, and soar anyway. Show them, by your living, what it looks like to be carried by faith, not fettered by fear. The view from up here? It's worth every step out of the comfort zone. And every step you take skyward becomes a testimony for those who are still learning to believe that their wings, too, were made for more than dust and routine. Unravel mysteries, one Bible story at a time. Subscribe today. Picture a single sunrise arrowing across a quiet desert highway, beloved, one narrow band of gold that outruns every shadow in its path. That's you right now, a beam no night can swallow, a promise painted straight across heaven's canvas, moving east to west with the certainty of divine appointment. And the moment that light hits the horizon, every creature that thrived in the half-dark begins scrambling for cover. One rival, that competitor, who once swaggered around the marketplace like they owned the patent on success, suddenly finds their footing slicker than ice. They can't explain the fumbles. In meetings they misplace numbers they used to quote from memory. In conversations they stumble over slogans they once delivered like gospel. It's not sabotage, and it's not coincidence. It's simply what happens when counterfeit confidence stands next to the real article. The glow in you exposes the props propping them up. Then there's the wanderer, the one who walked away when your journey looked slow, convinced they'd find greener grass beyond your fence line. Now the wind of change spins them in circles, and they rehearse their return in bathroom mirrors and half-hearted texts that never quite leave the drafts folder. They picture your front porch, imagine humility speeches, even practice laughter for old inside jokes, but you've moved to an upper balcony where the air is clearer and nostalgia won't fit the stairwell. Love still beats in your chest for every prodigal, but you're not descending into yesterday's soil to coax any seed that refuses water. And what about that seasoned advisor, the self-appointed mentor who insisted you could stretch only so far, dream only so big, lift only so heavy? Their well-worn mask begins to crack right where fear was hiding, fear that your leap would reveal their settling. In closed-door strategy sessions, they once rattled off risk charts to cage your courage. Now their own pulse hammers louder than their cautions as they watch you stand on ground they labeled forbidden. The tremor in their voice isn't hostility, it's the quiver of a spirit convicted by someone else's obedience. All these threads tug at the same moment, yet the tapestry doesn't tear, it flips. The fog they kicked up with rumors and detours dissipates in a single breath of spirit wind, and suddenly you see the whole landscape. It was never a three-ring rivalry, never an abandoned love story, never a cautious mentor's roadmap. It was the holy architect engineering a jailbreak, loosing every tether that kept you performing polite, safe versions of yourself. Are you a story lover or a truth seeker? Subscribe and be both. So here you stand, soul door flung wide, closets cleaned of costumes, feet planted on fresh promise. The sky you once studied like a ceiling stretches into cathedral arches, and your worship fills the rafters. Every limitation stamped permanent by lesser voices peels off like expired price tags. You realize the true contest wasn't a scoreboard against others, it was the wrestling match between your birthright and your comfort zone. And your birthright just pinned complacency to the mat. Now look at the ripple effect. Policies shift wherever your shoes tread because integrity flows from you like a broadcast signal. Supervisors who never noticed your name now quote your phrases in memos. Departments split by silent turf wars start scheduling cross-table lunches after one conversation with you about mutual purpose. Meanwhile, back at the family table, decades-old grudges melt in the warmth of the mercy you pour without measuring spoons. Siblings who vowed not to share the same zip code end up swapping recipes and babysitting duties because the peace emanating from your presence recalibrates the climate. And in the congregation, perhaps a Sunday circle that's been circling the same desert for years. Vision finally gets fresh ink. A pastor weary of patching leaks hears your testimony, and suddenly their sermons spark again. Plans for outreach, for refuge houses, for after-school mentorship begin clicking into place, not because you demanded a microphone, but because lived fire brands authority on every word you speak. You're not just telling stories, you're handing out roadmaps drawn in the furnace. Make no mistake, this whirlwind still howls around you. Old alliances occasionally launch one more flare, hoping to blind your momentum. But every blast of resistance only clears more debris from your runway. Where they once planted forged documents, heaven plants favor. Where they stained your evaluations, heaven stamps promotion. Where witnesses were coerced, heaven releases volunteers bearing witness to your character. You wake in the night sometimes, remembering seasons when whispers outnumbered affirmations, when a single false step might have confirmed the caricature they sketched of you. But even in sleepless hours, you sense the undercurrent. God kept you through the fire, not to watch you clap back, but to watch you bless back. The throne room agenda isn't limited to courtroom vindication. It's urban renewal, family revival, corporate reformation, and kingdom expansion. So you refuse to fixate on the chapter titled Exposure. Yes, light has indeed uncovered schemes. But the author hasn't paused his pen there. He's drafting paragraphs where your credibility builds bridges, where your healed heart becomes triage for shell-shocked travelers, where your once-mocked resilience becomes training curriculum for leaders who forgot how to hope. Hear the Spirit's invitation. Step onto the platform of influence that scandal tried to collapse. When your mouth opens, deliver policy that honors people over profit. When your hands extend, sow mercy that mends bloodlines. When your vision casts forward, paint horizons big enough for prodigals and pioneers alike. You're not rewriting the script with angry red ink. You're composing a symphony in royal gold letters, echoing the cadence of redemption itself. No longer will you apologize for volume when truth grows loud, nor will you mute joy to soothe fragile egos. Your laughter rings like church bells calling sleepers to sunrise. Your silence thunders like a courtroom gavel ending debate. The very cadence of your breathing reminds principalities that heaven planted a defense system in human skin, and that system is fully activated. Expect the landscape to respond. Expect stalled projects to restart the moment you step into the boardroom. Expect estranged relatives to text apologies before you draft reconciliation plans. Expect mentors who once capped your potential to invite you to speak into theirs. Not because you demand tribute, but because the gravity of grace on your life rearranges orbital paths. And when fatigue whispers that your shoulders weren't built for global renovations, remember the metaphor we opened with, that sunrise beam. It doesn't strain to be light, it simply travels the path ordained, and darkness must acclimate. Likewise, favor isn't a burden you muscle through, it's the natural state of one aligned with purpose. You were wired to carry this brightness without burnout, because the source isn't your personality, it's the inexhaustible glory of the one who scripted your identity before the cosmos had coordinates. So lift your eyes, architect of Renaissance. The blueprint unrolled before you bears heaven's watermark, and the ink is still wet with possibility. The chapter ahead contains corridors of influence you've yet to explore, boardrooms you've yet to reform, hearts you've yet to heal. Walk them all with the confidence of a child running across their father's acreage. No trespassing signs here, only welcome mats etched with your name in everlasting stone. And should any new carnival rise, promising thrill rides of drama and funhouse mirrors of distortion, remember this: one firm stride of truth collapses the entire amusement park. You won't waste breath defending what light already clarifies. You'll keep moving, keep building, keep blessing. Because that's what chosen ones do. They transform rubble into runways and curses into cathedrals. Now exhale, beloved. The ledger flips, the seals break, the path brightens. You're not just living a testimony, you're drafting legislation of hope for every eye watching. And the author who started this good work? He's already standing at the last page, smiling at how brilliantly you, wide-open soul, fire-tested and future-ready, bring his plot to a glorious close. Picture a lone farm gate creaking on its hinges at daybreak, then, Boom, the holy wind kicks up, flinging that gate so wide that every hidden plot in the cornfield stands straight in the light. Friend, that's the scene unfolding right now around your life. The season of whispered intrigues is over, and the fresh breath of God is sweeping through the rows, exposing every shortcut, every sweet-talk scheme, every codependency that once tried to hitch a ride on your favor. Competitors who spent their nights polishing trophies of comparison are suddenly running on empty. They burned through cash, contacts, and credibility trying to outglitter you, but the spirit has flipped on the stadium lights and the empty seats tell the story. Their sprint for applause drained the tank, and now the crowd can see the duct tape on their shortcuts. While they scramble for excuses, you stand rested, resourced, and radiant, because you didn't chase applause, you chased assignment. Then there's the nostalgic drifter who circled back, waving scraps of good old days, like a bargain yard banner. They wanted you to swap today's harvest for yesterday's memories, but you've got discernment sharper than barbed wire. You honor the smiles, you acknowledge the scars, and you refuse to cash in your present peace for a rerun of unfinished hurt. So the sentimental detour stalls, the engine sputters, and your journey keeps rolling forward on the highway of destiny. And let's talk about that advisor who leaned on your insight like a crutch. For years they asked for your compass but ignored your coordinates. Now the road has forked, and you're not the walking stick they can lean on anymore. They're staring at two paths without your steady voice to cushion their doubt, and that tension is the teacher God reserved for their growth. Meanwhile, you keep traveling, guided by the same North Star that led you out of every tight squeeze and into every open door. Here's the bigger truth. Heaven didn't fortify your heart just so you could tally petty wins. The Lord armored you so you could carry influence that heals boardrooms, dining rooms, and prayer rooms. Policies bend when you walk in integrity, family tension unties when you speak mercy, dormant visions revive when your testimony hits the airwaves. That's why the enemy wasted so much ink scribbling accusations. He feared the day your credibility would lift like a city on a hill and draw weary wanderers home. So keep your grip on the plow, chosen one. The soil is turning, the sprouts are rising, and the harvest is already humming beneath the surface. You're not just outlasting smear campaigns, you're rewriting the bylaws of every sphere you enter. Your life is the sermon, lived loud, walked soft, anchored deep. And when folks ask how you stayed steady while the grapevine burned, you'll smile and point to the one who kept the roots watered even when the rumors scorched the leaves. Let the holy wind keep blowing that farm gate wide, because the acreage of your assignment stretches farther than critics can calculate. Integrity is broadcasting, favor is compounding, and your next chapter is inked in unbreakable covenant, signed by the author who never runs out of plot twists or promise. Picture a sunrise-lit lantern standing at the edge of a vast canyon, one steady glow, quiet yet unstoppable, sending gold across every crag until the whole horizon shimmers with fresh possibility. That lantern is the calling placed within, and the canyon walls are every room, board meeting, and family table that once felt too small for the full brilliance you carry. No longer will opportunities arrive with fine print that asks for a discount version of the gift. Those backroom offers that once required shrinking, take them or leave them, now stay locked unless the door swings wide for your authentic stature. Conversations that used to circle around your worth finally land in plain sight. Compensation packages come aligned with true contribution, not polite applause. Promises that always dangled next quarter, next year, begin showing up as deposits cleared and contracts signed, because heaven has put your name on projects that refuse to move forward without the real you present. The ventures that lived on scraps of weekend energy, or hid in dusty notebooks, start thumping like ripe fruit on a branch, begging for harvest. Deadlines you once tiptoed toward now greet you with joyful urgency. Ideas whispered only to close friends emerge as strategic blueprints, fully funded and backed by partners who value excellence over ego. You'll notice the difference because the bank statement and the peace in your chest will say the same thing. This is honorable increase, not hush money for a muted soul. History's greatest dramas began here. Subscribe to see how it all unfolds. Time alone stops feeling like exile and turns into consecrated ground. Silence is no longer loaded with second-guessing. It becomes the blacksmith's anvil on which discernment is hammered razor-sharp. In those unhurried hours, plans download with clarity, motives get sifted from the rubble of old anxieties, and courage builds from a deep reservoir that doesn't depend on audience applause. People may wonder where you disappeared to, but the truth is you were in the workshop of destiny, letting the master artisan polish the edge of your purpose. As the atmosphere shifts, new faces arrive who can read the values stamped on you without needing subtitles. They don't ask for proof of worth, they speak the same inner language. Their presence feels like open windows in a stale house, effortless airflow, ideas exchanged without suspicion, collaboration that multiplies creativity instead of draining it. At the very same time, without argument, ultimatum, or farewell tour, energy leeches lose their grip. Invitations that once felt obligatory simply slide off the calendar, calls that used to trigger dread roll to voicemail and never require a return ring. You won't need block lists or harsh words. Mismatched frequencies just fade, like static when you tune the dial to a stronger station. Dive deeper into parables and prophecy. Subscribe for revelations. Even geography seems to honor the upgrade. Routes that formerly jammed with red lights wave you through on green. Errands align so perfectly you save whole afternoons for rest or study. Discounts pop up for resources you prayed about in secret. It is not coincidence. It is divine logistics reallocating favor to the coordinates of obedience. Influence follows integrity the way rivers follow gravity. Policies in the workplace begin to mirror the straightness of your spine. Where meetings once spun in circles of blame, fresh strategies materialize, not because you pound the table, but because your track record speaks louder than any volume of rhetoric. Those who manage the budgets suddenly see merit in training programs, fair hiring, transparent metrics, all seeds you planted by quietly refusing compromise. The old guard, sensing their grip slipping, tries one last time. The rival spreads rumors, but your discernment sees right through. The returner arrives with practiced apologies and shiny promises, but you know what real transformation takes. The advisor must finally choose to step forward in their own life or stay stuck in a loop of warnings and worry. Now, at the edge of this new territory, you're standing taller than ever. Every heartbreak, every lonely night, every disappointment has forged a new strength in you. Your boundaries are firm, your vision is clear, and your passion blazes. Life answers the standard you set, no more, no less. And for the first time, you realize choosing your own calling wasn't selfish, it was sacred. The restlessness that kept you up at night was heaven's reminder, there is more. Now, the time for hesitation is past. You have what you need, you are who you need, and the new chapter is already written in your spirit. The verdict is in, chosen one. You were built for this, and you passed every test the journey sent your way.